Shalom everyone, it's Friday again, and this time it's Parashat Bereshit. Bereshit, in the beginning of the Torah, as the phrase goes, we'll start from the beginning because it is a good place to start, is indeed the beginning of many things. In addition to being the beginning of the Chumash, the beginning of the Tanakh, it is also describing the creation of the world, and specifically the creation of man. Now, when we come to the psukim, to the verses which describe the creation of man, at least the first time round, in chapter 1 of Bereshit, we come to a very interesting turn of phrase. It says on the sixth day of creation, we're talking about after the creation of all of the different animals, Vayomer Elohim na'aseh Adam betzalmenu kidmutenu. God plans to create man, betzalmenu kidmutenu, to a certain degree in the image of God, and there's much to be explored about what that means and how that manifests. Is it talking about intelligence, as the Rambam in Moreh Nevuchim argues, or other things? And they will, to a certain degree, man will be the king of the animal kingdom, and man is very much seen as an animal, but as a superior animal, as a leader in the universe, on Earth, and very much the Earth is created for man. To a certain degree, he is the pinnacle of creation, the very last stage of creation. Vayivra Elohim et ha'adam b'tzalmo, and indeed God created man. B'tzelem Elohim bara oto, and indeed, as we mentioned, created in the image of God. Zachar u'nekeva bara otam, male and female, and there's much to be talked about that as well. But notice something very interesting. There is the planning stage, and there's the creating stage. Vayomer Elohim na'aseh Adam. And God said, let us create man. And then later it says, Vayivra Elohim et Adam. And God created man. The question is, A, why do we need a planning stage and a creating stage? In many other things, it just says, and God created the seas, and God created the fish, and God created the birds. But here there's definitely an element of planning, of thought. Let's, to a certain degree, draw up the blueprints for man, and then God actually does it. But more importantly, the question is, why does it say, Na'aseh Adam? Let us make man. Who is us? God is singular. There is only one God. This is very much the opposite. This would maybe make sense if we're talking about idolatry, paganism, where the pantheon comes together to create man. But here we do not believe in a pantheon. We do not believe in multiple gods. There is only one God. So who is Na'aseh? Who is God to a certain degree? What committee is God sitting on to create man? And then, more importantly, when actually God does create man, it's in the singular. Vayivra Elohim et Adam. And God created man. There's no us in the creation. There's only us in the sense of planning. And this very much brings us to the question of what's going on with this na'aseh. Let us make. So the Midrashim delve into different options. The Midrash actually beautifully is very self-aware and says that this is actually when God wrote the Torah, when God dictated it to Moshe, Moshe said, God, you're really opening yourself up here to all sorts of pagan conspiracy theories, saying that maybe, that actually we do believe in multiple gods, and this is some sort of, older stage of the Jewish theology. And to this day, you will find many people who will argue that based on ignorance and less understanding of the text. But nonetheless, the Midrash says, God said, it's not up to me to make sure that people aren't stupid. I write the truth. If people want to misunderstand it, that's their problem. But the question still stands, who is he talking to? And the Midrash, and Rashi very famously quotes this Midrash, that God is talking to Pamalia Shel Mala. God is talking to the heavenly court. Who is the heavenly court? Is it the angels? Is it, to a certain degree, the powers that he controls in the world? And I think this opens up a much deeper understanding and a very important message when it comes to the purpose and the uniqueness of man. When God creates the world, it very much just comes into being. God creates light, Vayom Elohim Ye'or, Vaye'or. God creates the seas, God creates the birds, he creates the fishes, creates the animals. When it comes to man, suddenly we have to take things into consideration. We have to open our eyes. We have to open up. There's very much more need of discussion, of a committee, of planning. Man is much more complex because man is created B'Tselem Elohim. And we'll see later on in the story that when the snake is trying to entice Adam and Eve to eat from the tree, he says, "Vayitem ke Elohim yodei tavara." This idea of, yes, there is this power within humanity to be God-like in a way. And there's elements of us that there are pinnacles that we can reach that are unique. And so when God is about to create man, it's very important that all things are taken into consideration. And I think the reason why God wrote this in the Torah is for us to recognize that when it comes to creating man, when it comes to building human endeavors, when it comes to building society, creating mankind, there's a need for cooperation. Na'aseh Adam b'tzalmenu kidmotenu. When it comes to this, when it comes to planning for human life, humans are not singular creatures. We do not run alone, we run in packs. And we need to be able, as Rashi says, Anvanuto shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu lamadnu kan. We learn here the humility to be able to open ourselves up to other opinions. Even if you're God and there is no one else, it's as if God turned to his left and turned to his right and said, is there anything I should think about and take into consideration before creating man? When we come to building community and to working with humans, we need to very often take a step back and not be just like gung-ho, let's do this, we're going to do X, we're going to do Y, but rather take a step back, say, hey, every human being has an opinion, and as Jews we have more than one. Should we take into account those opinions? And in the end, God creates man alone, but nonetheless, there's this idea of opening us up. The need for communication and collaboration is built into the human experience. And very beautifully, the term na'aseh, let us make, let us act, appears only one more time in Bereshit. And that is in the story of the Tower of Babel. In the Tower of Babel, which comes straight after the flood, where human beings are to a certain degree trying to rebrand humanity, we see that humanity comes together, Kol haaretz comes together, all the people gather in Babylon, Vayomru hava nivnena lo ir, let's build ourselves a city, or migdal v'rosho b'shamayim, and a very tall tower, v'na'aseh lanu shem. Penafutza p'nei kol haaretz. Here we find that human beings once more collaborate. But unfortunately, instead of collaboration for the purposes of creating man in service of God, B'Tselem Elohim, here we find already a hint of let's actually create in defiance of God. And that is where I think the Na'aseh, the power of community, is really held in the balance. Are you using the power of collaboration, human beings coming together? What one human being cannot do, multiple human beings are much more capable of, and the power of them all together is so much bigger than the individual parts. Is that to create or is that to destroy? And even, I would say, is that to destroy through creating? Is community there, the creation of community, the collaboration of human beings? Is that in order to build a better world? A man who can take care of the universe, who can follow in God's footsteps, who can be B'Tselem Elohim, in God's image? Or is that a man, an endeavor which is there to strike out against God? Na'aseh lanu shem. We want a name for ourselves. We want to undermine the element of godliness within us. And I think that is the question whenever one comes to collaboration and to human community. The question is always, you want to come and say hello? Okay, I'll be with you in a minute. Okay, Kuchi? That is, the question is, what exactly is the purpose of this creation? Is this na'aseh, is the power of community? Community can build to create, or community can build to destroy? And I think that at the end of the day is the question. So with that, I'll leave you. I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom, a Shavua Tov, and may we only use our powers for good. Shabbat Shalom.